Okay, so we've gotten this far, and now what we need to deal with is we need to deal with the footer before we move on to our responsive stuff. So right now, let's look at the way that we kind of wanted it to look. And we want it to, we're going to have a background image, but we want the copyright to float to the left, and we want the social media stuff to float on the right. And right now it's just looking like that. So let's get that settled. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to create, here, let me actually put a couple of comments in here. So section article, and then that way it's not a giant area like this is, but we can offset it a little bit. That way we know that it is still part of this section, but and then I can copy this actually, and then it will really help us find it quickly whenever we're looking for our stuff to make changes later. So anyway, so now we've got that commented, and then it's kind of nice. And we're going to go ahead also and create a footer rule. I guess I'll copy this up here so that I can use that as the basis for my footer comment. And we're going to say footer rules. Okay, we'll save that. And I'm going to go ahead and create something for the footer. And first of all, let's go ahead and give it a background color so that we can just see what we're dealing with. And we'll just sort of do it as a really light gray, so we can do it as like, we'll do it as CCC. Okay, and then that way we can at least see what we're dealing with. Okay, it's refreshing. Let's try this again. There. So it's just sort of this plain old gray, and you'll notice that the other thing too that we're dealing with is we don't have any padding or margins or anything. So I think before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and set a padding so that let's just try 3%, since that's what we used on the ones up above, some of the ones on the top. And the other thing too is that, again, we know we're going to have floats in here. We're going to have the copyright floating left, and we're going to have the other one floating next to it. So let's go ahead and we're going to say overflow hidden. I want to sort of drill that into you. So now that's what we have for the footer. And if you look down in here, what we're going to have to deal with is we're going to need to create rules for the paragraphs that are in there as well. We can just really quickly take a peek and see how our saved new stuff looks, and so at least it's got more breathing space down there, which is good. Okay, so now what we can do is let's go ahead and we'll make let's just make a generic footer P, and we're going to say float left because they're both going to float left. Okay, you don't need, we actually don't need the social media stuff to cling to the right, because if you look at the way that we want it, we actually want it to line up. Well, this doesn't look right, but this isn't correct. We want it to line up here. I would rather it line up here than have it cling all the way to the right. So either way, it really doesn't matter how you choose to do that, but let's go ahead and just say both are going to float left. And then the next thing is that let's make the specific rules. So we have footer P, and one of them is called copyright. And the reason we need these specific rules is because they're going to be different widths. And I can go ahead and copy this, and before I even add anything to it. So the other one is called social. That's what I called it. So we have two empty rules that are specific. So footer P, copyright. If we follow the percentages that we used up above, then we're probably going to be in pretty good shape. And I think it was 51% and 37%. So screenshot was 51% wide, and the other one, the article, was 37. So that's probably what we need to follow if we want them to be uniform. So let's try 51%. And here we'll do width is 37%. That, save. Now I can already tell you that there's going to be a margin issue, but let's just discover it together. Okay, see right here, it's actually doing what I'm telling it to do. So let's say inspect element. So this is actually 51%, so it's behaving. And then this one is 37%, it's behaving. Problem is that there's out to the right, there's this extra 10%. What we need to do is we need to get that extra 10% and get it in between the two. So you could either make this 61%, I guess, and remember, don't forget that we're dealing with 3% padding, but not 3% padding around these, it's 3% padding around the whole footer. So really you're only dealing with 6% here on the outside edges. Okay, so if you take a look, let's talk about this again. There's 3% here and there's 3% here. So that leaves some extra math left over. Okay, so we've got right here, we've got 88%, and that leaves 12 left. Well, we've got an extra 6 here, so 12 minus 6 is 6. So now we have an extra 6%. So let's do margin right 6% and see what that does for us. And it may be the one and it may not be the one. We'll see. And it's not the one. Well, you might be wondering why that is. And it's part of it is because we've got we have some rules that are being inherited and the sizes aren't quite right. So let's try 10%. We'll see how that works. That looks better. Okay, so now we've got our stuff lining up and it's staying lined up. So that's pretty good. That's the way I'd like for it to be. If you wanted yours all the way over, you could tell it to be text align right if you want it to be. So if you wanted it to hug the edge, what you would do here is you would say text align and then right. But I'm not sure that I want mine to do that. So either way, I mean, it doesn't really matter. We can leave it that way for the time being. Later, if I put buttons in it, I don't like it, I can take it back out. Now, the other thing too is that I had a background image. Nothing else has a background image, so really I don't necessarily need one. But if I wanted a background image down here, the way that you could do it, obviously, is you could go up inside a footer, and instead of just having a flat background, you could have an image. So what I'm going to do here is I already have an image, so I'm going to tell it to go URL, and then because I'm in, let's do this where we toggle left. I am currently in this styles.css file, and what I'm trying to do is get down to this bullet or this strange bullseye thing. Okay, so that means that I have to traverse up a directory to get to my top level directory. So that means when I say traverse up, what that means is I need to go // so I need to go up one level, and then I'm looking for images, so that means I'd type images. Oops, but not right there. Let's put it inside the parenthesis, images. And then I'm looking for the file name, this file name, strange_bullseyes. So strange_bullseyes.png. Yeah. And I want it to repeat. So as shorthand method, I could come inside of here and I could just say repeat. But that is its native behavior. It will repeat. And if I wanted it to repeat starting from the center out so that it doesn't do weird things whenever oops, I can't type right now. Let's try that again. So that whenever I scale stuff, or whenever I scale the page, see, it scales out from the center, okay? So that's how I could get my background, all right? And by the way, I got this at, if you do a search for subtle patterns, or yeah, subtle patterns, the first hit here is a great website. It's called subtlepatterns.com, and that website has tons and tons of really nice, literally subtle backgrounds, and you can sort of preview the page like this and change the background to see what it looks like when it's tiled. Okay.